That's the fun in it.
I guess.
I still meant to call you King Guacamole. Here, you're talking about the guacamole.
Oh, yeah, I love guacamole. Who doesn't?
King Guacamole. What is happening?
I don't know. I thought we were going to start talking about Philly cheesesteaks again.
Oh.
Hey, I'm always game to talk about a Philly cheesesteak.
Yeah. There's a place in the East Valley I've been told that I have to go now. Now that I've tried all the Philly ones, that they're like, oh, it's really good. And I'm like, well, we'll see. It's called Famous Phillies or something like that.
I haven't tried it.
It's out in Gilbert or something like that.
Now that you brought it up, I had to go there.
Because there's Corleone's,
right,
which is good, but I've had it, and it is definitely not like the ones
Have you
in
had
Philly.
Forefathers yet?
Yeah,
they're
so I'll get to try them now.
And
see.
Taste of Philly on Central. That's the one I was talking about.
Okay.
I liked it.
All
That's
right.
the only one I've ever
There you go.
had.
I'll just be fat forever.
Yeah,
Eric.
Uncle Sam's makes them
Make
too,
a list.
so.
Make a list.
Welcome to 7 Points, a podcast produced by the Arizona Department of Public Safety, where we talk to different individuals who make our department so great. Whether a state trooper or civilian support staff, every employee has a unique story and path they took to get here. 7 Points asks guests 7 specific questions to give listeners insight into what it means to work here and to be a part of the law enforcement family.
All right. Well,
Now that I'm hungry.
Yeah, right?
yeah, now that we're all hungry now, welcome to 7 Points Podcast, a production of the Arizona Department of Public Safety Public Affairs Unit. It's very official sounding. We'd like to thank all of our listeners for joining in today. And today's episode, we have Sergeant Ken Norton. And
Basically a legend.
pretty much,
I
yeah.
mean-
I mean, he's trained about
Everyone?
at this agency
I
at
feel
some
like
point in
everyone.
time.
Well
or
over-
recruited them. So.
Well over 500, I would say.
Oh, my goodness. And not only from our agency, but other agencies
All
as
over
well.
the state of
so,
Arizona, yes.
Yeah. So, first, as we call the dating profile questions, Sergeant Norton has been with DPS for 20 years now, which is a feat in and of itself. So,
And he still looks like he's 20.
I know.
He must like it here.
I love it.
His favorite food is hot wings. Great choice.
Oh, yes.
Now, are you talking like buffalo hot wings or like honey barbecue? Like
Absolutely buffalo.
buffalo.
All right,
Let's go
there
on.
you go.
Like
Ranch or
spicy,
blue
spicy?
cheese?
Spicy. Little ranch. Yep.
Okay.
Oh, man.
There you go.
Throw in some pizza on the side. We're good.
Man, we're good. We're going to have to go grab a meal now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, seriously.
Have you had the mango habanero ones from Buffalo Wild Wings?
I have not yet.
Oh, those are
yeah,
those
those are
are they're
delicious.
hot, but they're good. They're
They're
amazing.
very good.
Favorite movie, The Equalizer. That's a
There
Denzel.
you go.
show,
That's
or-
Denzel.
Oh,
okay,
the
yeah.
first one.
The very first one.
Okay.
I have
Those
not
are great
seen that
movies,
one.
actually.
I've heard
Great
they're good.
movies.
I just haven't seen them.
So good.
Yeah.
Favorite sport to watch? Football. Not just football. Football, of course.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. That's where the wings come in and the pizza.
There you go.
do you prefer NFL or college?
College.
College?
Nice.
Yeah.
Who's your team?
Notre Dame.
Notre Dame.
Fighting Irish.
Oh, my
Interesting.
goodness.
All the way.
Interesting. Okay. And then, but also what you like to do on your own time is wood scouting or hunting. Okay. Oh, with Soto Outfitters.
I'm a guide on the side.
Nice.
I
That's
do it
awesome.
my time, yes.
Do you
Love it.
prefer rifle or bow?
Rifle.
Rifle. Okay.
Done bow. I used to do bow quite a bit, but I went back to rifle. And I really like the rifle.
Interesting. See, that's something growing up not out here. Like hunting was not a thing where I grew up, and I come to DPS, and every freaking person at this agency hunts. I'm like,
Yeah,
I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know anything about any of this. But that's just me.
I do
I'll
love
take you.
a
I'll take
good
you.
hunt.
I'll take you.
All right, sounds good. Well, welcome.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
having
for agreeing to come here and being a part of this, and we're excited about this. So as I explained before, and as I explained on every episode, we here at 7 Points ask 7 questions. We ask all of our guests the same questions. We want to learn about you and your experience here at DPS, but we also want you to be able to share your experiences with those outside of DPS who may be considering a career in law enforcement or especially a career at DPS and kind of these specialty things that people get to do, as well as just guys that are on the road in highway patrol doing their time there and loving life in highway patrol. So for you today, we want to talk to you about your experience as an academy sergeant, kind of that first step for all state or all police officers.
The first
but,
memory,
yeah,
at least,
the first,
right?
The first core memory, not just
Yes.
memory, a first core memory
Yes.
for any law enforcement
Burned
officer.
into your soul.
Exactly. You
Day
will-
one. Day one by
Yeah.
far.
Absolutely. So, getting into that though, we'll start with our questions. Before DPS, what did you do? Where did you grow up? All that kind. What's your history?
So I'm originally from Globe, Miami, Arizona, a little small mining town. My grandfather was a miner. My dad was a miner. My dad was just a hard worker. Most of everything that I've accomplished in my life is because of my father. My whole childhood, my dad was just an amazing person, always working hard. He was doing 2 or 3 jobs to provide for us because I came from a pretty low-income family. So I spent all the way to 8th grade in Globe, Miami. Dad, of course, got laid off at the mine. We lost everything that we owned. He ended up, cool story, my dad ended up moving up to Snowflake, and he was literally like sleeping on a friend's floor just trying to get a job up there that he could get enough money to move my family up there, which I still think about. I was like, man, my dad's an amazing person to do that for the family. Then we ended up moving up to Snowflake. He got on at the paper mill up there, ended up retiring from there, and I ended up graduating from Snowflake High School up there. So I loved it. Very small town. I'm a small town kind of person, to be honest. I plan on retiring and going to Safford, Arizona, because my family actually originated from Snowflake, Arizona. There's actually a Norton Road in Safford that's actually named after my family, which is pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not many people can say that about their family.
I love it. Funny story is everybody asks me, like, why haven't I stole that sign yet? And it's like, oh, I'm a cop. I'm not going to steal it.
Right.
Not yet, at least.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I grew up in Snowflake, and then right after Snowflake, one of the things that really kind of guided my life was it was such a small town, and I looked around, and pretty much everybody just stays there, and I knew like I wanted to do more, especially because I knew early on in my life that I wanted to be in law enforcement. Well, back then, 18 years old, you couldn't be a cop, and there was a hiring freeze. So then I literally graduated. A week later, I went to contemplate life because I knew my family couldn't put me in college because we were just too poor for that. So took a cruise over to Sholo. Lo and behold, and the good Lord just, boom, here's the military recruiting office. Somehow I ended up there. A week later, I was in the Navy, and I was gone. Literally drove back that day, told my mom and dad, I was like, hey, I'm only going to be here another week. And they're like, well, what's going on? I was like, I just joined the Navy, and I'm gone in a week. And their faces just kind of dropped. They're like, what? And I go, yeah, I got a week, and then I'm out. So it was cool. And I hit the ground running. And ever since then, it's been awesome.
Nice. So you went to Great Lakes for basic?
One of the very last classes to graduate from San Diego.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
In fact, as I was going through boot camp, they were breaking it down.
Oh, wow.
And so literally, I was like, I think I was the second to last class to graduate from San Diego, because literally as we were going through, they were like just changing everything. And I was like, wow. And it started kind of turning into a skeleton place because like everybody's getting booted. This base is shutting down.
Yeah.
So I was very thankful that I didn't go to Great Lakes. Because
Seriously.
I heard some stories about Great Lakes. I'm like, ooh, thank goodness for San Diego.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
Arizona kid.
I would have froze.
So what was your job in the Navy?
I was, since I didn't know much about the military, they kind of like reeled me in like a guppy.
Bamboozled you.
Yes. So I started out, believe it or not, as a seaman recruit, and then worked my way up to bosun's mate 3rd class.
Oh, okay.
Because when I went in, again, like none of my family were ever really in the military, so I didn't know anything about it, and they made it sound great, and they signed me up for this program where I could do all the jobs. Little did I know.
That
It was a
meant all
lot
the
of
jobs.
mopping, a lot of mopping and chipping and painting. It was all of them, but it was still a great ride. I
All the jobs nobody else wants to do.
ride on. But yeah, it was a great ride. I went in, I got trained on a lot of stuff. I loved it. I every minute I loved. I made 3rd class. One thing about a bosun mate 3rd class, once you make 3rd class, you actually become a supervisor. It's one of the ones where you actually have people work for you. I ended up getting in charge of the small boats because we had some small boats for like the captain and admiral and stuff, because I did have an admiral on my ship. And so I moved over to a boat crew. I was the rescue boat driver. So I got to fool around with all the small boats, which was an awesome gig for me. And I had a whole team that worked for me, and that was our whole life. Is when we went to a foreign port, the captain wanted to cruise in his boat, we'd drop it, and I would cruise him around. If the admiral wanted to go cruising, I'd cruise him around. And God forbid if somebody fell overboard, I'd hop on that boat and go save them. So, but it was awesome.
Nice.
That is pretty
What
cool.
ship are you based on?
The USS Coronado off of Coronado Island.
Oh, wow.
Sweet.
Nice.
Another great assignment. It was a great assignment.
Nice.
And because we had an admiral on board, we never did a 6-month deployment. Because the captain and admiral, especially the admiral, he was like, oh, no, we're going to go out to sea and get where we're going because I don't want to float around. So I was like, yes.
That is good.
It was great.
Nice.
That's awesome. So, do you maintain any of your, like, obviously you have to be trained to actually drive a boat. Do you maintain any captain's license or anything like that, or?
No, it was all based in the Navy. So one of my specialties is, the flat bottom boats like in Saving Private Ryan and all those movies?
Yeah. Yep.
You see them drop the soldiers off. That was another specialty. I was trained on how to drive those, and then I actually ended up getting out, and they almost called me back because I joined during the war, and then they actually almost called me back because there wasn't a lot of those drivers around, and they didn't end up because I'm like, oh man, tell me I'm not going to get called back to active duty just to go drive those boats. But it was just a bunch of schools.
Yeah.
I went to a lot of schools. Wasn't such a great driver at first. I ended up, funny story is learning how to drive the motor well boat, which is the rescue boat, and it literally is like half a banana. It's very skinny,
Right.
shaped like a banana,
Right.
and you drive it like the steering wheel's upright like this.
Oh, I gotcha.
So one of the drills was the instructor sitting up on the front, standing up front. And he's like, brings in a dock and don't you dare drop me off. Yeah, no, it didn't work out so good. I got nervous, instead of going reverse, I went forward. Off in the drink he went. Yeah, it was a bad day for me. I'm like, well, I'm getting booted out of this school day one.
Right.
So, but it ended up working out.
That's awesome. So, you mentioned that you had already knew you wanted to be in law enforcement, but why? Why did you want to be in law enforcement?
Growing up, it's kind of weird. So a lot of things happened to me in a young life. Is that one, I was very, very shy, kept to myself a lot. In fact, if it wasn't for the military, I probably would have just been that way my whole life. The military makes you grow up really fast. So, and even in high school and even in smaller, it's like I seen a lot of people get picked on, and it's just like natural for me to like try to help people. Cost me a lot because usually I get involved in stuff I shouldn't, even though I was kind of quiet, but. Is one of my biggest pet peeves is just seeing other people take advantage of other people. And I just knew, like, man, I got to put a stop to that. It just drove me nuts growing up. So I'm like, what a better way to help the community and help people is get in law enforcement and stop people from bullying other people.
Absolutely. Somebody's got to be there to protect those that either are unwilling or can't. So that's an awesome reason. More specifically, what led you to DPS?
Money.
There you go. I like it. I like the honest answer.
I was going to ask, like, why not you're in the small town environment, why not like the Snowflake PD or even the sheriff's office?
So I went 4 years Navy, jumped out, thought I could jump out and go right into law enforcement, get into hiring freeze. I talked to a lot of people I knew, for instance, in Miami and stuff, because I ended up going back to Miami because a lot of my family still lived there. None of the PDs were hiring unless you were lateral. So then I ended up in corrections. So I did 4.5 years corrections because they were hiring. And then what was crazy is even then when I was going through corrections, I still wanted to be a cop. In fact, everybody I knew knew I wanted to be a cop. Well, I ended up working my way up in corrections. I ended up becoming the key control officer, which is responsible for all the locks and keys. Well, my boss, his father-in-law was the chief of Miami. And one day he just walks into the office one day and he's like, hey, like, you still interested in being a cop? And I was like, yeah, it's my dream job if I can ever get there. And he's like, as soon as you get off work, drive over to Miami PD and apply. My father-in-law will hire you and send you to the academy. And I'm like, are you messing with me? He's like, nope. And I'm like, he's willing to send me to the academy, like, pay for the whole thing. He's like, yep. I couldn't get to that place quick enough. I was like, man, I was kind of like, well, come on, let's get off. Flew over there, met with him, filled out my application, and then he sent me. So I was actually a Miami PD officer for about 3.5 years. And the reason I jumped over DPS is because Miami PD was a very, very small agency. So I was working pretty much 24/7 for a while because if you would go home, they would get a domestic, whatever. There was only a handful of us, so they would just call me back out. I'd throw a vest on and a gun belt and then go help them and then go back home. Well, it was causing... it is, happy wife, happy life kind of thing.
Right.
So my wife was like, hey, we got to make a choice here because you're working all the time.
Yeah.
And not bringing home the money that would.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
making,
yeah, yeah.
I was making, what, 24,000 a year?
Jeez.
Miami PD, the only thing, and love them. I mean, I'm not going to say anything bad about them. They trained me and I took a lot of calls, but the only thing they provided you was a box of bullets. And I actually had to do a grant to get the squad car that I was going to drive. So I wrote the grant.
That's
It was an
awesome.
Impala. I still remember. They helped me write the grant. I had to, and then when they gave me the money, I'm like, I think it was like 35,000. I'm like, wow, I'm going to have the coolest squad car around. Boy, was I wrong when you start putting all that police equipment on it. That 35,000, like, man, all I can afford is an Impala. But ended up doing a grant, decked out an Impala. But again, the experience there was amazing. I took all kinds of calls. I mean, in 1 year, I can't even tell you how many serious calls I took working for them. But Larry was Lieutenant Larry Scarborough at the time. Well, I was doing a lot with DPS because I'll tell you what, without DPS in Miami, I don't know what I'd have done because every time I took a call, if I need a backup, county was always busy and Globe was always busy.
Yeah.
DPS always backed me up. And like all those guys on the Globe unit back then, I don't know what I'd done without them. I mean, they were saving my bacon left and right. Well, a lot of times you guys would do, back then, they were doing those DUI checkpoints. And when we were helping, well, every time they're like, just lateral over. Like, we'll get you over here. You'll make more money. We'll get you right back to Globe. Well, after a while, I'm like, man, I'm almost on food stamps. DPS is making a ton more money. And then my wife's like, yeah, and it's a better schedule. You get a take-home car. So I'll never forget. I call Larry at the time, like, sir, man, today is that day. Can you really get me back to Globe? He's like, I will get you back here. And I'm like, done, I'm in.
Yeah.
And it's funny because in the Advanced Academy, they ask the same question. Everybody's getting up, like, why are you here? I'm here to serve and protect, whatever. Same thing they get to me, and I'm like, I got a $40,000 pay raise coming over here. Like, I'm here for the money.
Right.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Oh, so kind of now that you're at DPS, walk us through your career progression. Where have you worked? What have you done? What have you been able to do?
So I started off, again, I went right back. I ended up working Roosevelt Lake back then because it was District 11, but it was kind of broke up. So I was actually assigned to Globe. I ended up doing my FTO at Roosevelt Lake squad. After FTO, they're like, well, since you already learned the lake, do you want to stay there? I was like, absolutely. I've already learned all the mileposts out here. So I ended up doing a little while at the lake. Then it all got combined, and then I ended up being on the Globe Miami squad. I did approximately about 10 years there, just working the road, loved it. I loved it. It was great. My boss was great. District 11 was great because the only downside is that when you grow up there and then you move back, you run into a lot of people that you stop that you know.
yeah.
I mean, I knew a lot of people. Heck, all my family lived there too. So a lot of times they're just like looking at you, like, hey, sorry, but I got to do a job. And I know you. Heck, some of you
Yeah.
are my neighbors, but can't be breaking the law. So that was one of the downsides is just knowing everybody in your community. It's like, this kind of bites sometimes that you're arresting people that you know. And then after that, just one day they called and said, hey, would you like to go to the academy as an RTO? And I'm like, never thought about it, but yeah, I'd love to go. I mean, yeah, if they'll take me. End up going down to the academy. It was supposed to be a one-class assignment, and then approximately 8 years later, I'm still there. So, because the commander at the time,
First class was terrible, by the way. Just a bunch of terrible dudes. Basically the worst cadets
The
ever.
worst ever, huh?
Yeah, I mean the worst ones. So terrible. Anyways.
Oh,
because I ended up going down there, and it ended up being it was one class, and then the commander at the time was Commander Perkovich
yeah.
Tempe
from
PD.
Tempe
Tempe,
PD.
yeah.
Yeah. And then he came to me, and he was like, hey, and you know how, I don't know if you guys know, but back then it was like one and you're done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
There was just
they were
no-
pretty strict on
Yeah,
that.
they were strict. So he comes to me, and he's like, hey, Ken, staff really likes you. Would you be interested in staying for one more? And I laughed and said, love to. Never going to happen. He's like, what? I was like, oh, no, this is a one and done assignment. Like, we don't get to stay for another one. He's like, well, if I can pull it off, would you stay? And I was like, I would love to. I was like, but again, I don't want to burn no bridges, and I sure don't want my sergeant getting mad at me if I'm gone again. And he's like, well, we'll see. Sure enough, like, my captain at the time, Captain Escobedo, he called me, and he's like, hey, would you like to stay for another class? And I'm like, I remember asking him, I was like, yeah, but what's Sergeant going to say? Like, he's going to be mad. He's like, well, I'll worry about the Sergeant. I'm like, then I'm in. Like, I would love to stay for another class.
Probably because you made sure that his son graduated.
Yeah, that's true. Very true, yes.
There was a method to his
Oh,
madness.
So,
yeah.
just so that everybody knows, and I've chronicled this in another episode, but I did have the opportunity, and it was a positive opportunity to do the academy twice. For my second academy class, Sergeant Norton here at the time was one of my recruit training officers, RTO, the guy that yells a lot at me. So, good times.
Yeah.
That's why I say absolutely terrible class. All the recruits were terrible. We screwed everything up. We had one guy that couldn't spell his own name right. It was a whole thing.
But those are the memories we love.
Yes.
It just gives us more fuel
Yes,
to go down there,
absolutely.
mess with the class.
Trust me, we made it easy on you.
Lots of fuel.
Yeah. Unlike our class was, in fact, I might have said this. So Eric and I's class, the one right before, basically everybody's older. I mean, you and I were some of the youngest, really. I mean, we were 30. So, I mean, we had a lot of experienced guys that you weren't going to rattle them. I mean, and Sergeant Cabrera now, what is he, a lieutenant or something like that?
lieutenant now,
Lieutenant,
Yeah, so Lieutenant Cabrera kind of figured that out pretty early on in that class, and it was just like, well, all right, let's just get them through, basically. Not my second class. Bunch of young guys that thought they were cool, that had to be broken down. It was fun to be part of that.
It's always a good time.
So, what point did you promote, or did you promote into the academy, or when did that happen?
So I ended up getting a permanent gig, permanent RTO spot down there. And then I tested for sergeant. Super excited I hit the list. And then, again, can't say enough, like the good Lord, because I had my camp trailer ready. My wife was ready. Like, it's one of those things like, hey, because, it's a funny story is when I started the sergeant's process, I'm like, no, I'm only going to get, I'm going to put in for specific spots. I'm only going to take the spots because I like being at the academy. So I'm like, if I don't get it, oh well. Once you go through that process, it changes your mind drastically.
Yep, been there, done that.
Yes.
Okay.
So then it went from like, honey, I'm not doing this again. Wiki up, here I come. I don't even care where I go because I'm not doing this again.
Yeah.
So like we had already talked to him. I was like, look, wherever they tell me to go, I'm going to go. I'll live in a camp trailer. Like we have a camp trailer. And then when my year's up, I'll put in from other spots and we'll make it work. And she's like, absolutely, let's make it work. I was like, all right. Couple weeks, I'm pretty much the next one on the list to get promoted. I knew. Like, in fact, it was like getting down the wire, like, oh, I'm the next one. They're going to be calling me. Where am I going to go? A sergeant at the academy just up and quit. And the next thing you know, they're like, okay, well, now we're in a pickle because he just up and quit. We have a class getting ready to start. And I don't know all the stuff that ended up happening, but the next thing you know, they're like asking me, like, hey, would you be interested in taking a sergeant spot down here? And I'm like, absolutely. Absolutely. Because that's just unheard of.
Yeah,
Nobody
right.
gets promoted in
Absolutely.
place.
Yeah.
And then it's like, they tell me that, then I'm waiting for the call, and I'm like, it's probably not going to work out.
They changed their mind.
Yeah, this is not going to work out. There's-
Somebody up top said no.
Yes,
Yeah.
there's no way I'm going to get promoted in place. Sure enough, Assistant Director Hunter called me, and he kind of chuckled, and he's like, hey, so I heard you want the academy. And I was like, absolutely, sir. He's like, congratulations, you're at the academy. And I'm like, yes. Well, then as soon as it got out, I can't tell you how people I knew called me and were like, what is going on? How did you get promoted in place? And I was like, don't hate me. I'm just happy I got it.
Hey, opportunity knock and you answer the door.
Yeah,
What are you going to do? Say no?
Right.
absolutely not. No way.
So, can you kind of compare and contrast being an RTO at the trooper level versus being the sergeant level in the academy environment?
I think the RTO is the best gig, hands down. Just because I didn't realize being an RTO is an awesome experience. In fact, it's one of the best things. If you're out there and you're listening to this, I highly recommend that everybody gets the opportunity to be an RTO, because seeing someone day one and then seeing them graduate and the look on their face when they get a badge, you can't compare. It's an amazing feeling. They thank you so much. I can't tell you how many times now, especially me, when I drive around, I run into people all the time, and they share their stories with me, and we laugh. But you get to experience that more closely as an RTO. And I didn't realize as a sergeant, like I didn't even think about it, to be honest. And once you become the sergeant, there's a little bit more of a disconnect, which I kind of missed that when I was RTO, because it's like you really get to know people on a level that you'll never experience. Because, I mean, they're looking up to you like you're everything. And people don't realize they take everything literally at the academy. Like if you tell them a story, it's gospel to them. I mean, they're just so eager to learn, and they're hanging on every word. And now, don't get me wrong, I loved being a sergeant, I like being in charge, but I did miss that ability to, because like when I became sergeant, if you didn't cause a lot of trouble, sometimes I would have to make it a point to try to like remember your name, because I just wasn't down there all the time like I was with an RTO. In fact, most of the time when I went down there, it was to discipline, more or less, to get on them because they messed something up really bad. So I did miss that. I missed just a one-on-one, getting to know them, their families, and hear their stories. It's amazing. It really is. It just hits you really in the heart that, man, I helped mold this future trooper and police officer, whoever. I mean, I've graduated. Like I said, I can't tell you how many agencies I've worked with and graduated their officers, and it was just an awesome, awesome ride.
And Warren, you talked a lot about, the camaraderie. Eric and I talked about it because we went through a class together. And, the same thing goes for our RTOs, right? So Jim Fleming, Kenny Norton, like these are the guys that like every time I see you, I'm like, hey, Norton's over there. Hey, you don't want to see him angry. You know what I mean? All that kind of stuff. And we have these little stories that everybody's like, ha, 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 ha. Okay, but we know, you know what I mean? So it's a different level of camaraderie, that we talked about in the department. And it's not necessarily unique to DPS, but sometimes I feel like because it's a statewide agency, it's even cooler when all of a sudden you got somebody who's now a sergeant up in District 1, haven't seen her for months, and all of a sudden you probably see each other and, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? So it's stuff like that. That's
it's got to be a great deal of satisfaction for you.
It's absolutely, and there's a lot of respect in it also. I mean, I respect all the brothers and sisters that work in the state of Arizona or across the United States. I mean, I see these people all the time, and I just, with all my heart, I respect them because it's like, one, they're still here and they haven't quit, and two, I mean, we all know that jobs is getting harder and harder, and I can't say enough. I just ran in, actually, I just did cadet testing Saturday, and I ran into Lindsay. She was another one, and I hadn't seen her in years. And as soon as I seen her, like, give each other a hug. It's like, man, I haven't seen you in a long time. And just memories start flooding in because you're like, oh, man, I remember you day one.
We always remember you guys from day one.
Yeah.
How many times you mess up the count?
Exactly.
Always.
Can't say your name. There's all kinds of things that happen.
So that kind of leads into this. What is your favorite part about DPS?
My favorite part is people. Hands down, I have truly, I think, in my heart, and again, I'm just speaking from my experience, I have truly been blessed on my 20-year ride. I loved my squad. They were families. I mean, we had family get-togethers, and then I moved over to the academy. Can't beat Jim Fleming. I mean, big Jim Fleming, like he's like my brother. Jason Christie, Jason Covert, all them, another family. Like, and then now I'm in recruiting. Have people like Serena, Elliot, Lucas, and all that, my analysts. I have truly been blessed in my ride with truly some of the best people I've ever met. And I'm truly, at the bottom of my heart, I couldn't ask for a better ride. Honestly, my 20 years have been amazing because of people. Because the job has its ups and downs. We all know that. You're going to have your highs and you're going to have your lows. But honestly, I think it was, like, if I could truly say one thing that I love, it's the people. Because every day I go to work, I'm like, oh, I wonder what they're up to today. Oh, I get to see them. I can't wait to hear how their weekend was. Or, hey, let's get this, project done, and we work together. And with me, hands down, it's people. I love the people that I work with, and I have truly been blessed through my entire career with the people.
So you've been able to do a couple different things here at DPS. We've talked in other episodes about how many opportunities there are here at DPS between all the different specialty units, and that's one of the benefits of being at a bigger agency is everything that we have to offer, and for DPS specifically, not only everything that we have to offer, but everything we have to offer in the entire state, not just one, even a big city like Phoenix, but all over the state. So if there was something because I feel like based on your passion for it, the academy has always been kind of your dream spot that you've loved and you've enjoyed every minute being there, which is fantastic. If there was another spot in the agency that the director came down and said, pick where you want to go, wherever you want to go, you can go there, what would you do right now? Where would you want to go?
Not be in the academy?
Not be in the academy.
I love recruiting. I would say my third passion, maybe, because I do love recruiting. This is another really good spot. I was blessed I moved over and I found my niche because I love getting out there talking. I mean, they put me in a good spot. Like, I love talking to people. So I'm in a good spot now. I guess this would be my second, but if I had to pick another spot, maybe governor's security.
Okay.
I did on and off with them, and I thought it was a good, that's okay, that with the boss. But governor's security was a really good time. I had a great time doing that. So I think if it wasn't academy and recruiting, because I love them both, I could see myself, I enjoyed the governor's security aspect.
Nice.
I really did. I liked meeting different people, like different governors, and transporting them and getting to know them. And then the traveling was pretty fun and doing that kind of stuff. A little stressful, but that was a pretty, I could say that was another really cool thing I got to do that was like, this is really cool. And I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I know I've been put on several of the details, like for the conventions that come in town, that kind of stuff, and it's been a lot of fun and just eye-opening to see what goes on, and not that anybody in this room would have any idea of what Governor Security does. But it's a lot of fun. So
I know what you're talking about.
It was good. It was a good ride. I enjoyed every little bit that I got to do. It was good. So if I had to pick something, it would be that.
My takeaway to that, though, is yet another thing that DPS offers that a lot of departments don't offer. And if you're looking to get into law enforcement and you want to have basically so many different roads to look at, I mean, dignitary protection is its own unique, genre of policing, and it's actually quite opposite from like road policing and all that kind of stuff. But like, it's its own thing. And then there's the SWAT team. Everybody knows SWAT team, but there's just so many things at DPS that we offer, and for the most part, offer them statewide. That, man, I mean, I can't think of a better. I don't know why anybody go anywhere else. I know money's obviously on people's minds when you're out recruiting. They want to know who's the highest paid. Well, there's more to it than that, in my opinion. And that's why I'm here, because of the more to it, the people, the little things. It sounds funny, but the take-home car, people don't think about that as much. And I know we've been saying that for years. Oh, we get a take-home car. It's a big deal. Okay? I get a gas card for that thing. You know what I mean? And it's like, thank you. So, in my opinion, on top of everything, so many different jobs, so many different things you can get involved in. Across all the gamuts, from administrative positions to training, learning how to train people, to, dignitary protection, everything. So that's when I hear stuff like that, I'm like, look, there's another one. Because everybody's come in here and said something different pretty much. So,
and especially like with the dignitary protection side, not to break any trade secrets, but for that's so unique just to DPS, because almost every agency out there has a SWAT team. Almost every agency has a training unit. They all have motors. They all have patrol. But dignitary protection, like, that is DPS and
Phoenix.
And Phoenix. I know other agencies, like a good buddy of mine works for Scottsdale, and he's in a detective role, but they also do some of that on the side, but that's just kind of an ancillary role on the side of their regular detective stuff. But at DPS, like, if that's what you want to do, you can do that, and nobody's going to kick you out unless you're doing a horrible job. Like, you get to stay there as long as you want. We don't have rotation policies. You get to stay there as long as you're keeping up your end of the deal. You're going to stay there, and if that's what you love, great, do it. So, yeah, and that's unique to DPS that nobody else really gets to do.
Yeah,
not the way DPS does it.
I hear that at every single recruiting event that I go to. They don't even realize that we do investigations.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I go to these events all the time and talk to people, all military, you name it. I talk to them, and all they think is like, oh, well, you just, you stop people on the highway and you take wrecks, and it's like, oh no, we have a ton of detectives. We do gangs. We do facial recognition, all that stuff. And they just look at you like dumb. I'm like, what? And I go, you guys, we do so much more.
Right.
We have more people behind the scenes than most agencies even have officers.
Yep.
And it boggles their mind. They're just like, wow. And then you end up talking about that forever. It's like, yeah, like it's so sad that you like don't know like we're state police. We do so many.
Don't
more
know that
things.
we have a crime lab. Or, you know.
One of the largest crime labs in the state.
Right.
They don't know,
Right.
and it's
We have air rescue. I mean,
Yeah.
Trooper Allen in here telling about how even he learned. He's like, wait, you guys have a hoist? You guys do hoists and stuff like that, and like mountain rescues. Oh, put me on that. So all that kind of stuff.
yes.
So I want to go back to the academy for a second, since part of this podcast is kind of a recruiting function. What, being both an RTO and a sergeant or a BTT, whatever they call them now, what is going to make a recruit successful going into the academy, and obviously not giving away some of those fun secrets that are everyone experiences in the academy, but what's going to make somebody successful when they go into the academy?
I would say two things. First is this. You have to think deep down into your heart and your mind and like really reach down and go, do I really want this? Because one thing about the academy is a lot of times if you're on the fence, and I've seen this my entire career when I was at the academy, if you go into the academy and you're on the fence, in my experience, you're not successful because you're on the fence. But if you go home and you seriously say, I want this in my heart and in my mind, and you're ready to put everything that you have into it, you'll be successful. The second thing is you need help. Whether that's a loved one, a friend, a roommate, your wife, you name it. I have seen so many people at the academy think, one, they can just do it alone. You can't do it alone. You just won't be successful. You need help. You need to sit down with your family, whoever it is, if it's a roommate or somebody, and go, let's figure this out. Because there is a lot of stress at the academy. People don't think about a lot of it because everybody knows day one, everybody sees the shows and like, oh, you're going to get yelled at. What they don't realize is that there's so much more. There's the ironing of your uniform. There's the shining of the boots. I've known and I've helped train people that don't know how to shine a boot. And they don't even take that into consideration. It's like, yeah, if you don't know how to shine a boot, that's another stressor. Because now I'm going to spend hours and it's like, am I doing this right? So there's just a lot, the studying, you need to have someone to help you. So I think two things. One, make sure it's for you. Like think about it. And I tell people every time we do a testing, I give a speech and like, hey, just really go home and contemplate like, yes, I want this. And if I do, I'm going to work as hard as I possibly can. Because I tell people, our academy is hard for this. And I tell everybody this. If you don't have to work hard for a badge, you're not going to protect it with your heart and soul. Because you didn't work hard for it. It's like finding a little, toy in a Cracker Jack box or whatever. You didn't have to work. You just, here you go, go out on the road. But if you have to work heart and soul to get that badge, you will protect it with every fiber of your body. Because it's like, man, I worked so hard, nothing's going to cause me to lose this. So I love that our academy's hard. I think it should always be hard. But I'll tell you what, if you want to be successful, and I tell people on day one all the time when I was meeting them as a sergeant, it's like, look, go home and make sure this is in your heart and in your mind, because you're going to need both. Because you're going to need your mind to be focused on tests, and you're going to need a heart when it gets hard. You're going to have to dig down deep and go, yes, I want this. I'm not going to give up. Because it's easy to give up. I mean, people give up all the time. We lose 3 to 5 every week one. Why? Didn't have it here and didn't have it in the mind, and they just gave up. So make sure it's for you, and you're ready to fight for it. But two, you need to have someone to help you. Whether there's, for instance, 44 people join this class, hopefully. That's 43 people you can ask for help. And ask for help, because if you don't, you will struggle. You have to have someone to help you.
And that, I cannot stress how true that is. Even for myself, when I went through, I can vividly remember it was so we started on Monday, and it was, I think it was either Wednesday night or Thursday night when, that first week, we're getting a million memos every night. We're sleeping like maybe 3 hours. We're ironing every night. And I had never been under stress like that in my entire life, but I'd known for my entire life that I wanted to be a law enforcement officer. And I'm sitting there as I'm ironing my black and whites, like not crying, but like I'm holding it back. I'm just like, and I'm looking at my wife. And so we had been married for a number of years. We had, my oldest was only, I want to say only two or three at the time. And I'm looking at my wife just going, I don't know that I can do this. Like this is beyond anything that I would have imagined. Like
when you're trying to stencil your name.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Exactly the way it's supposed to be. Oh my gosh.
And then I'm going in there and marking it all up, making you do it again.
Oh my gosh.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, the angle's off by 2 degrees.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I just remember so vividly going, I don't think I can do this. And thank God that my wife is such an amazing woman that she goes, no, you've wanted this your entire life. And we had a long conversation about it before I started. We had an extra room in our house that was my academy room for studying, for ironing. Everything was in there, so I didn't lose anything. And she was like, no, you have wanted this your entire life. This is what you've said. This is what you're meant to do. You've got this. And just kind of instilled that confidence in me again that I needed. And there were definitely other times that I was like, oh man, this is crazy. But I never got back to that point of like, is this really, like, I don't know that I can do this. And because I had multiple people in my life that loved me and cared for me and knew me, and we had those conversations and set me up for success. And even in the class, I've always naturally tended to be a leader wherever I went. And you remember, I mean, I know you didn't live on the west side where we did, but I was like, hey, West Siders, we're going to meet at this location every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. if you want to come study. Every class, I was the one writing down the study guide. We were studying everything. And at first, we only had maybe 5 of us. But by the end, it was everybody who was on the west side was coming to my study group. And and even some east siders were coming to the study group. And everybody was studying together. And because we knew the people who studied together and went to those study groups were going to pass the test and they were going to do well. So it was 100% what you've said. I have absolutely seen that in so many levels in my own experience. So yeah, so important. Absolutely.
Yeah, kudos to you guys for going through it, because when I observed my first class, I was so discombobulated. I'm like, if someone had asked me my name and birth date, I don't know if I could have said it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly the way it goes.
I was so shook. I was like, oh my gosh, but it definitely was something, an eye-opening experience to see and hear that. But kudos to people who go through it and finish.
Everybody thinks they know what it's going to be like until they get there.
Oh, yeah.
And for us, Freddie Jimenez
I was just
from
gonna say
across,
that.
like literally, I swear he was at the building. We're like a mile away, and he's like, "Stop scratching your face," and I'm like, "Who's scratching their face? Don't move and look." I'm like, "Okay, don't move and look," and it's just bombardment after that.
You don't want to be that person day one that we focus on.
Yeah,
Don't move. Just whatever it is, stand still.
Yeah, I just remember Freddie Jimenez, Tempe PD. I think he's like lieutenant now, at least a sergeant, if not a lieutenant.
No, he made lieutenant.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh,
He did.
Congrats, Freddie, if
guy.
you're listening to this.
One of the best guys.
Oh,
too.
yeah. But him and Jim Fleming,
Oh yeah.
like later on in the academy, they're the greatest guys
Oh, yeah,
ever. But in
absolutely.
the beginning, you're just like, I think they might murder me in the parking lot, and they're going to get away with it. And that's just, I'm going to be the sacrificial lamb, evidently. And it was terrifying. But so we look back now and we're like, that was so much fun.
Oh,
like,
it really was.
It was horrible and the greatest experience of my life that I will never forget. So
They always tell you that. You hear it all the time. Beginning of the academy, we hated you.
oh yeah.
See, now I never hated it, but like never hated anyone. My problem was I wanted to laugh at everything, especially Jim. Jim would come out and say the goofiest stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh, why did he just say that? I got to stand here and just, oh my
Don't break.
goodness.
Don't break.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be that guy
Oh,
either.
you don't be that great. Were you laughing?
Yeah.
Were we funny?
Sir, no,
Oh,
sir.
man.
And then the 4-minute drills. Again, I don't want to give away too many trade secrets, but for my second class, favorite time of the year, of the whole class was the 4-minute drill, Hey, get in there and change, and you got to be out in this amount of time. The whole time. You're watching, because now I know. I've kind of got it figured out. I'm watching everybody just freaking out. And hopefully this trooper gets on our show, but Josh Stockton in my class, and he unfortunately picked the wrong locker. I picked the first locker right at the end of the bank so that at least I know one side, good to go. No. He picked the one right in the corner. I was like, that's going to be bad. That's going to be bad for you. So sure enough, 4-minute drill, 2 lockers next to him, blocking his. And he's just like, guys, what am I going to do? And I was like, Josh, there ain't no physical way that we're all getting dressed in 4 minutes. No. And that's what you just put on what you can get on. You're going to look like a mess when we get out there. It's part of it. Just accept it now. Just get as much as, like, I told him, I said, focus on your pants, your socks, and your boots. Everything else, do your best, but just get out there.
You're going to get yelled at no matter what.
It's going to happen.
I remember Jonathan Barbeau in our class. He had also recycled from an earlier class. And he's just, like, sitting on the bench. I'm like, Barbeau, what? Like, I'm throwing my stuff on. And he's like, you'll see. You'll see.
Yeah,
I'm like,
but he didn't tell us. That's the problem.
Yeah, Jonathan, thanks a lot.
Gosh, didn't help us out at all.
Gosh, but yeah, those experiences.
Loved it.
Yeah.
They're great. They're great.
So this kind of on that same note.
I mean, can't even imagine the stories.
I know how many stories you could tell, but what's give us just if you can think of one great. I mean, yeah, embarrassing.
Preferably not about me.
Yeah. Funny story.
Yeah, I want some details about this guy.
Oh, come on. I was an angel.
But a good, what we call a trooper tale.
So there was one. So I think it was Jim Fleming, me. I think back then it was Gilbert PD was with us and somebody else. I don't know if it was your class. It might have been because it was early on in my time down there. We go down there, we're getting ready to yell at the class, and we're standing outside the classroom and we're formulating this plan. It's like, okay, we're going to go in there, be dead serious, yell, scream, cause a ruckus, and, do some discipline. So we're all lined up. We're like, okay, this is a plan. Gilbert's going to slam the door open. We're going to walk in, and we're just going to start yelling. So we're like getting pumped up because you're going down. He's like, okay, let's get pumped. Yeah, you got to get pumped up, get your game face
Especially
on.
now knowing all of you, I'm like, it's actually impressive.
Oh, yeah. Because you got to flip that switch because you can't be laughing. So we're like, all right, get your game face on. Okay, let's go. So we're all lined up. We're like, okay, hit it. He grabs the door, slams it open, and down there's a metal pillar. So the door actually hits the cement and comes.
Makes a very
distinct
noise.
noise.
I remember that Fleming door opening.
I can hear it right now.
Yep.
So we're lined up, ready to go. He grabs it, and when he slams it open, it hits the wall and slams shut on us.
I think this was my class.
Yeah. So we're all standing there, and then we just start laughing. And I know they could hear us, but we're like, well, what do we do now? We can't go in now. Like, they know we're coming in. We just made a fool out of ourselves. We slammed the door on our own face. So we're just sitting there like, okay, let's go to the other door. Give it a few minutes. Yeah. And then we'll act like that was all the game, that we were just scaring them over here, but really going to pop in over here. Yes. So then we end up going in, but I will never forget that.
We were already standing at attention the whole time.
Just waiting.
I think somebody even asked me, like, Harris, what do we do? I'm like, I don't know.
Probably because the door opened, but then nobody wanted to look and see if there was something.
Oh, you better not look. You better not look.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, man.
It was horrible. It was funny, but it was horrible because we're like, man, it messed up our whole plan just now.
Funny.
Oh, fantastic. There's never a dull moment at the academy.
Millions where that came from.
Oh, there's tons.
People running up Sergeant's Hill, doing all sorts of things.
We had a guy got in trouble. Jim Fleming did this one. It was hysterical because it was back in the day. We're talking back in the day. But he got in trouble for something, and then he ended up, for the entire day, he had to run around with an old bubblegum siren up, and he had to go, woo, woo, everywhere he went.
That's hilarious.
That sounds like
Jim
a Fleming.
has some good ones.
Jim was awesome at finding some funny stuff.
I love that you made some kid in our class stand outside the door holding the rubber shotgun every single day. I don't even know what he did. I can't remember.
Yep.
But
security watch.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then he was on, unfortunately, same kid. He was on the flag detail, and he forgot his black and whites, and so he's the only guy in civilian clothes. And I went to, I was the little, unit leader, whatever. So I go to Fleming. I'm like, sir, there's a recruit that forgot his uniform, his black and white. Permission for me to stand in it because I had done flag in my first class. So I was like, I'll just stand in so we don't look like trash. And he was like, literally, he whispers, he's like, that's a good idea. But he's like, nope, we're going to look like a bag of some words that we can't say on this podcast, but we're going to do it anyways. And so he gets all mad and roars in there. I'm like, well, I tried. I tried.
See, near the end of the academy for me, I was probably only like 140, 150 pounds in the academy. I was not, well, not that I'm fat now, but I
Look
was.
at you, chubby.
Yeah, I know. And Fleming would always give me crap. Be like, "You're too skinny, Andrews. You need to start eating." And I'm like, I'm stressing all the weight off anyway, but okay. And near the end, I think I was the monitor that day, and so for whatever reason, I go up there, and he just kind of leans over the cubicles that were up there and is like, "Hey, so what's going on down there?" Just like speaking, and it wasn't totally near the end, but it was closer to the end, so they'd started to lighten up a little bit, but still, I'm very intimidated by the whole, and I hated being monitor. I freaking hated that job. And he's leaning, "Hey, so what's going on?" And he's just like making small talk with me, and I'm just like, I want to laugh, but I'm not going to. And he's like, hey, come with me, and starts leading me towards the back where like recruits aren't supposed to go, so I'm freaking out, like something's gonna happen. He makes me a protein shake and a peanut butter sandwich and is like, "Here, eat this." I'm like, "Sir, yes, sir." And he's like, "Actually, hold on." And he gives me another peanut butter sandwich and he's like, "Go back down to the classroom, eat them in class." I'm like, okay. And so I walk all the way back down to class and I just sit down, and Jonathan Barbeau, who sat next to me, is like, "What is that?" I'm like, "I don't know. They just gave me food and told me to eat it." And so I sat there and I ate it, and an hour later, or whatever, Fleming comes down and he's like, "Hey, so was that a good shake? Was that a good sandwich?" I'm like, "Sir, yes, sir." Like, I don't know what to say right now.
Is this a trick bag?
Yeah.
Was I really supposed to eat it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure it was our class. Jim came up to me and he's like, "You see that guy over there?" And I looked down. It's this skinny kid. I don't even remember who it was. I think he worked, I forget what department, but he's like, "Tell him everything you eat every day." I'm like, "Yes, sir." And then he goes down to him and he's like, "You see that guy down there? Yeah, the chubby one." He's like, "Tell him what you eat every day. Harris, write that down." I'm like, "Sir, yes, sir." I can't remember what class I was, but it was exactly like that. I'm like, all right.
Oh, well, we could reminisce about Jim Fleming all day and the academy all day, but Ken, thank you for being here. We appreciate your time and your insight, especially to those looking to come here potentially. I think it's important to know all that stuff. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being here.
And thanks for recruiting.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yes.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it. It was a great time.
Yeah.
We need good people.
Mhm.
We need them all.
Definitely do.
To all our viewers and listeners, thank you for joining us for another episode of 7 Points. We will see you next episode. Have a good one.